for this online conference, but then we said like, okay, they're like our lucky hats, so we have to have them. So yeah, that's why we're dressed like this. So first, maybe just before we start, I would just like to thank the organizers of the event. I don't know if all of you know that this is a completely community-run event. Nobody is professionally paid to do this job. And Martin, Frando, and Diego were organizing this like completely voluntarily. So I would really like to thank them for giving us opportunity to be able to present our project. So
yeah, thank you very much.
And now we can start.
All right. Maybe a quick background of what was originally the motivation for the project before we actually jump into it. So like a long time ago, we basically come from some kind of activist background. So basically back then in occupied times, we were kind of trying to change the world and make things better. And we kind of came to the conclusion that maybe if we would embrace coding as a literacy, that would be a good step to organize and maybe actually make a change. So we basically, when we came, since the very beginning, like 2013, 2014, we already followed DatDot. I think originally, like we learned about like the main people that are driving it in the Node.js mailing list. And also back then, I mean, a little bit later, Node School was an inspiration for us and the Cyber Wizard Institute. And we started like a little hacker meetup, a regular one in Berlin. And we did a little bit of teaching coding with Wizard Amigos, which still exists. And in 2015, while still in Berlin, we had like a lot of refugees coming to Berlin. And we basically made a project called Refugees Work that we were also doing. All that was basically from an activist, and let's try to improve the world and empower people. But most of the time, we were really broke. Even though it was very fun, and it's also, I think we created a lot that was a problem. So, but luckily, because we were running this meetup next to all these other activities, somebody who joined our meetup once told us that their company is looking for front-end developers who can build the developer tools and editors and all kinds of stuff for a language called Solidity in the browser to do some kind of, basically for smart contracts. It has to do with blockchain. Turned out that company, it was Ethereum, and we were with them for 3 years. And while inside and finally earning a little bit of money, which was like kind of nice compared to before, but we were still passionate and wanted to do something to empower people and change things. We were trying to promote and push that. And like basically last year, we finally were successful. And we started to build like a little hosting solution for Solidity smart contract source codes, verified ones. And that project exists. And because of that, we imagine like a lot of people in the blockchain space became maybe aware of the project and maybe a dot, whatever other exact reasons, but the Web3 Foundation basically gave us an opportunity to work on a project to make this little hosting proof of concept that we created into like a more general solution. And so basically, starting with the very end of last year, we were starting the project DatDot, which takes from the hosting of one data type, basically smart contracts, and was very, I mean, it's working, and so that's the good side. But we wanted to generalize it and try to embrace the Web3 Foundation. They are making Rust in Rust. They're building a framework so you can build your custom systems. And that's kind of what we tried to use in combination with that to make our own rules the way we wanted, because in this context of Ethereum, we were a little bit limited in how we exactly could approach things.
So yeah, basically we got this grant and started to work on DatDot approximately 5-6 months ago. And because we were also running this Wizard Amigos coding school and like communities that are in Berlin and in Taipei and in Chiang Mai and in some other locations, I hope that somebody of our wizards is also listening. And I know that these people are beginners usually in programming world. And I myself also started programming in 2013. And I remember like going to these lessons, like it was Rails Girls, free coding lessons for women. And I remember coming to these lessons and like this mentor said like, okay, make an array. And I was like, what is array again? I completely forgot everything. And I know how hard it is to get all this vocabulary. And now we're talking about all these peer-to-peer systems and hypercores and chunks and blocks and everything. And I basically yesterday we have weekly calls with our UX and UI designer. And then when I was like talking about these concepts, I figured out, oh my God, this is like super, super hard to understand. Let's come up with some kind of a story, something that is like metaphor for this world. So we were like yesterday brainstorming together, not for the talk, but just for her to understand what are we even doing so that she can make a nice UX. And this is the story that we came up with. And I'm just thinking like, if it was so like happening like yesterday, I just decided to also share it with anyone who maybe is not familiar with these concepts to kind of understand what it's all about. So imagine in the wizard world, because it has to be a magical world, there is a professor or some kind of scientist who creates like a book or some kind of a writing about secret potions or something like that. And this professor wants to share this with some other people who are interested in this, some other scientists or some kind of apprentices or readers or learners. And she decides to go to a fair, like a book fair, like a peer-to-peer thing, and to share this book with people who are interested. So this is basically like, I have it on written on the slide on the side. Book can be seen as a hypercore, and this book has many pages, so many chunks, or some people call it blocks. And when you want to share this book with other people who are interested, or maybe some parts of this book, some pages, you have to go to some place where they can find you. So the professor decides to go to the book fair, a swarm. And now in the swarm or in this book fair, everybody who is interested can join and can get a copy of this book. And she has some copies prepared already. So if somebody wants to know about that chapter where they're discussing this magic potion for something, she just gives them out these parts of the book, these pages. But our professor or our magician is also overworked, like usually magicians are, of course. And she needs to take a break because like it's been tiring year, and she decides to go on like little holidays. And now there's a problem. Who will go to that fair and bring this book for her to distribute to all these other magicians? So she asks a friend or a helper. And this basically becomes a habit, and this, because there is like a lot of these professors and a lot of magicians who have the same problem, they decide they could create some kind of a collective of helpers. So everybody who is willing to help each other out when they cannot go to this fair, they can volunteer and do this. And these are usually some apprentices or some learners, and these people like help, and they decide, the professor feels like it's a very good thing that they do this for me, but how can I say thank you? So they decide to make like some kind of a magic board where basically they write down a thank you for everyone who was willing to help, to acknowledge this effort, to show some recognition. And everything is nice and everybody's happy, but professor still feels like it's a nice thing that I recognize this effort and I'm very grateful, but maybe I could do more. So a lot of these helpers are themselves also writing books, and they also want to distribute them, but maybe they are from somewhere far or don't have so much time or don't have like a special booth on this fair, so they cannot reach out to other interested parties or peers. That's why these professors together decide maybe we can, give a little bit of space on our booth for these other people who write books, and maybe we can share this also for them. So this becomes like some kind of a magical system where people are willing to help each other out, to share data in the name of somebody who maybe cannot join the fair. And they have like this board where they kind of mark everything and everybody is giving something back. So sometimes somebody is helping out and the other time somebody else is helping out. And this is like some kind of a magical system. And this could represent the DatDot, which is a system that we are currently working on that is trying to help people who are sharing data, share each other's data. Oh my God, I complicated a little bit, but I hope you get the point. So yeah, do you want to take over from here?
All right. So right, we try to make that system into technology. So basically, we are using already, or we already used before the DAT protocol, or the hypercore protocol, where we can basically, everybody can use it to share whatever books, magic potions, or whatever content it is that they want to share. And the professors usually don't have a problem because their stuff is so interesting that a lot of people come and use it. So somebody always has it, basically. But yeah, as Nina mentioned, the apprentices who are just starting out, maybe their stuff is not so, they are not so popular yet, or their stuff is not so popular, so sometimes they might have a problem. So in order to have that kind of little magic board where people can help, not only professors, but anyone to share or keep data available for when people want to get it, we thought that maybe there's a framework, it's called Substrate, which is developed by the Web3 Foundation. They're based in Berlin. And it's like very modular, and it's written in Rust. And it's basically like there are a lot of systems out there, whether it's Bitcoin or others, that are very opinionated, and we don't really necessarily agree with how they do things. But the cool thing about that framework is that you can make your own modules, and we're right now doing that. And they also have a lot of existing components to plug and play together the mechanisms or rules about such a magic board that you want to see. And so that's basically the technical part that we're using together with DAT.
So basically DAT is taking care of all these writing books and visiting fairs and reading and copying data. And the Substrate part is the part that is taking care of this board with writing down some thank yous or acknowledging the work that was being done by people who are sharing, helping to host the data.
And it's the same as in this magic system. It's relatively unopinionated, or at least that's what we're trying to do. So every time somebody makes data available, however much data it is, or for how long they do that, we just record it. And basically it's acknowledged that they did it. And also when somebody reaches out, whether it's a professor or somebody, to have their data shared, then somebody does it for them, then we also record it. So it's kind of visible by everyone in terms of maybe gigabytes or duration, or a lot of what we can technically measure, to just record it. And then what people will do with it, that's like a secondary thing. It's just like basically there to record. All right, and we have a little UI that maybe helps. So one is like a little screen where you can add a feed address, and then you can select maybe the chunks or chunk ranges to tell what kind of.
So what pages from that magical book do you want somebody to bring to the fair for you?
Right.
So somebody to host.
Yeah, we have a proof of concept. It's working, but it's working only for a single feed. So if you wanted, for example, to keep a hypercore or certain sections of a hyperdrive online, you would need to enter both feeds independently. So the system currently doesn't figure out automatically what are related feeds.
Yeah, so the first milestone we successfully finished after a couple of months, and it has a substrate part and the service part. The service part is basically JavaScript that is communicating with this substrate node, and we're using Polka.js, which is an API that helps us communicate with JavaScript to the substrate.
It's a little JavaScript helper library to send RPC, I mean, basically sending messages to the Rust or the substrate node that is running. Usually we're sending it from the browser or maybe some kind of Electron app. But also Node.js, you can use it.
Maybe just to add one thing, the technology is open source, of course, and it's not meant to be one center point where people can come and ask for their data to be hosted, but it's more meant to be maybe like Cabal, not as a chat, but as a technology that many different communities can use. So basically, inside of a certain community, peers or like community members can run this process, the node, and they basically say how much of the space they have available, and then whenever somebody needs hosting, they can just say like, okay, I need this and this from then to then, and then it can match them with another peer who is offering this space for them. And there is like this kind of a board that is tracking how much work or contribution was done by each peer.
Right, and the exact mechanisms that we try to implement.
Maybe just to add one thing, the technology is open source, of course, and okay, I will unmute him. Cool. Sorry. So let's see, just to maybe wrap it up also.
Yeah.
Because
so just one thing, the mechanism that we implement is built into something that is called a palette, which just basically means a module or plugin that can be used together with other kind of modules or plugins in the Substrate framework. So for example, there's one probably very common or mainstream module, which is a token module. So you can make your own blockchain with a token, but there's a lot of others. Like one is called democracy, and you can make your own ones, and we currently work on our own one. So whether you like, maybe if somebody likes the system that we try to build the way it is, they can use it, or they host or start their own version, or maybe they modify it. So the idea is that people can experiment with different modules.
Okay, so that's all. I mean, we can, of course, get some questions. We didn't even check the chat now, but I would like to thank to the contributors. Fiona, she's from Taiwan. Jam is in Berlin. He's working mainly on the substrate part. Mauve built like a crazy library, peer-to-plex, that we're using in DatDot, and two of us. On DatDot.org, you can get like the first draft of our documentation. We are absolutely not live, so this is all super raw and work in progress. So please don't take everything like super literal. And there's probably tons of typos and everything.
Yeah, I can just quickly show it. You can't really download anything yet, but the idea is that you will be able to do it soon.
But we already have a button.
You can go and check out the documentation. Under news, we also published or linked some videos that explain, so you can actually run a Docker container and basically try out the chains, and it's creating a hypercore, pinning it, and basically doing the whole process just as a little demo. And then you have our support chat.
and supply tree.
Yeah, that's not there yet.
But okay, maybe I can just mention this is like also a wish that we want when we go live. What we would like is that whenever we get some contribution for this project, we want to basically reward also all the modules that we are depending on, because all that we built is built on top of the awesome open source that Macintosh and I don't know, the whole crew around the DAT and the hypercore protocol built. So we think that the only fair thing is that whenever a project gets some kind of contribution, it should trickle down to all the dependencies. So this is the system that we would also like to use in, but yeah, that's another talk, I think.
Yeah, first we have to finish our remaining milestones.
Okay, so do we have anything else? No. Okay, so now let's check if there is any questions. How do I even see the chat here? Public chat. Oops. Okay, so I can stop sharing the screen.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening and for joining. All right, thank you very much. If anyone has a question, or want to discuss something,
I think there's some question coming up.
Okay. What was our motivation? Oh my God, we were discussing before, should we make the whole talk about just the motivation, or but do you want to talk about the motivation?
Motivation. I mean, it's like I mean, maybe it's like in general, you could say this activism background that we have is that there's a lot of people that are doing a lot of cool stuff. I mean, it can be even easy things like when you go to shop in a supermarket or whatever, and you ask your neighbor and maybe you just bring him, or like little gestures in everyday life.
Or giving space to somebody on the bus, or feeding a homeless person. All these things are basically done by good people, but in our society, we don't have systems that would not reward, but even acknowledge these things. Right. So we don't have a magical board where we write thank you for people who are doing good. We only reward people to be robots and do jobs.
Yeah, so basically everyone who's taking time to do something where there's maybe no direct reward is basically taking some time to do something, while somebody else who's just straight always going for the things that are monetarily rewarded, they get ahead faster and further. And I think that was also why we were so broke in the past, until we basically got lucky and had some time where we could work in that case.
Got lucky to just get like a normal income, not got lucky to get
I mean, this was our experience. Like from today to tomorrow, money is not a question. And then from tomorrow to the day after tomorrow, you're again back to square one. And it's like almost like random. You do approximately the same stuff, but whether you get some money for it or not, it seems almost random. And we felt like if there is some tooling, how people, at least for what they do, can maybe track and then give back and acknowledge each other, maybe this can in certain circumstances improve things a lot. Because even when I'm thinking about what I'm using, I have my clothes, I have my laptop, I have all these things, and I need to have a lot of people in my community that have all these special skills so that I can kind of peer-to-peer exchange with them directly. And it's even for me hard. It's like almost like a full-time job to keep track of what is everyone doing and do I even know. So if I have some mechanisms or things in place that help with this, maybe we can somehow improve it. And I would like that at least we for us, but maybe other communities for themselves have more of a say and can design those mechanisms according to what makes sense in their community.
And maybe another thing is like if we really switch to these peer-to-peer systems, we will need to somehow take care of this hosting. And if we don't build that kind of systems, we will come back to these centralized businesses that will take care of this for us, or we can start thinking about how do we make some kind of cooperatives. And you can kind of open a classic cooperative structure, offline thing, or we can use this kind of new technologies that enable us to play with this.
So I can maybe say two things. First, there's a question from Martin regarding how to use it. So our idea is you would download an Electron app. The screenshots that we were showing on the slides are kind of from the Electron app, and that runs a daemon, and it probably includes, I guess, the hyperspace daemon. But the idea is that you can use it from your little Electron UI, or more likely even from within the browser. So the browser just talks to the daemon, you can do it. And maybe this will be bigger browser, but for some people who are new to all of this, they could also use regular browsers. And yeah, for the user interface, I mean, we hope to make it like really convenient. It depends a little bit on if there's a related feeds standard, because if you would need to manually put in all the related addresses for your hyperdrives,
Hypercores.
I mean, hypercores, for
Currently,
example,
it's working
hyperdrive
on
is 2.
hypercores.
Yeah, that would be quite tedious. And if we have to manually support every data structure, then hyperdrive is lucky because they're the first. But depending on how many apps there will be out there, they always have to come to us, ask for a pull request to get added, and that's also not such a great experience.
I mean, it's an open source project, so everybody
Right.
can just do a pull request. But if, yeah, Frando is typing something. Mm-hmm.
Pretty much not at all. They're
Yeah.
completely separate. So we have basically
So the question maybe for somebody who's
a
not
substrate daemon, or maybe a substrate chain daemon, if you want to call it like that, which is using this Rust-based module that we're building to implement that logic that we have in mind. And it's running standalone, and it can even run on the same computer or somewhere else.
and it's doing just the tracking of who did how much hosting.
Right, and then we are having a service daemon, which is written in JavaScript, not in Rust, and it basically includes all the entire logic for. It basically offers like convenient methods to respond to events or messages from the chain. And the other way around, if you trigger it, it will also ask the substrate node to do certain things. So they're communicating via RPC. No, Substrate has their entire, it's basically completely independent stack, has absolutely nothing to do with hyperswarms and hypercores. It's like, I mean, it's written in Rust, but it's completely, the only thing that they're doing, they're using the same crypto. So they're also using the ED25519, but other than that, so actually we use the the core store to use the keys or derived keys that we use usually in the hyper world, and we use it to make accounts for the chain. So you kind of can derive from the same core keys. I don't know if that's now a super benefit, but that's kind of the only thing. They have the same crypto in common to a large degree, but they're otherwise separate. And also the way how substrate nodes communicate is to some degree based on the modules. Like there's a module for proof of work, there's a module for proof of stake, there's a module for proof of authority, there's a lot of different modules.
Consensuses.
Like the consensus layer, you can plug that together. You can also write your own one. And they call those modules pellets. There's a website, I think, substrate.dev.
Last question, Elder.
Right.
Yeah, but you can still answer.
Yeah, so I think, so those parts, so we will hopefully soon update the DatDot.org page with the second milestone, and then slowly have something that you can actually download. Now it's only the Docker container. So in the news section, if you're really interested, you could run the Docker container, but it's not really super user-friendly. We'll hopefully improve that very soon.
I can maybe, just before we leave, share the slides, just so that you can get all the links. And then if anyone is interested in any details, I mean, we're happy to.
Yeah, also, if you feel like, if Gitter is your thing, or Telegram or anything, or Twitter, we can also answer more questions. We're happy if somebody's interested.
We can also share the slides to the YouTube video and on the presentation page on the website.
Super.
Thank you.
Cool. Like Frando and Steve are typing something. I don't know if this is still related to us.
Yes, to my knowledge, it is. I mean, the thing is, what we are trying to do
So
is,
this, yeah, that substrate is built on libp2p.
yes, we're trying to keep the substrate parts as minimal as we can, because we are thinking that who knows, maybe in the future, more and more things. Maybe we can even get rid of the entire framework, and who knows what if there's anything at all in the end that we will need substrate for. Maybe there is, but at least we try to keep it minimal. So who knows if it's possible to later replace parts and
I mean, technically, it could be built on hypercore if there was this multi-writer feature already, or
maybe,
I don't
yeah.
know. But this is what is what are we using it for? Just for this kind of board to track.
Yeah, the board with all the features that we wanted, we didn't know how to solve that just with hypercores, because multi-writer for us wasn't totally clear. And here we have a more straightforward way to get started.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming, and looking forward to other talks and to future discussions.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye-bye.